Everyone? All right, good evening. All right, my name is Richard Dodson. I'm the president of the Collin County Republican Men's Club. And I'd like to welcome all of you this evening. This is an educational program, and it's based upon our understanding of who is Israel. Our special guest this evening is from Israel, and he will be sharing with us some of his stories behind the real stories. Will you please stand as Commissioner Susan Fletcher and the young man Steve Duke, first Steve, from the Collin Higher Patriots, come and lead us in the U.S. and Texas Pledge.
Please join me in the pledge to our wonderful republic. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, Steve.
I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas flag.
I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Please remain standing. Mark Freeland, will you please come forward, sir, and lead us in our invocation.
Thank you, Richard.
Before I begin our invocation, permit me to make a few comments about our U.S.-Israel relationship. It is a deep and natural alliance between two democracies that share an unshakable commitment to the rule of law, human rights, and freedom of religion and speech. The long-standing strategic cooperation allows both allies to face common threats, including terrorism and weapons proliferation. Israeli innovation in the defense and homeland security areas has helped protect American soldiers abroad and civilians at home. In addition, joint research programs and a free trade agreement have spurred collaboration, innovation, and commerce between U.S. and Israel. Prayer is God's design to bring about His will on earth. Through prayer, He has given us the awesome privilege of partnering with Him. With that as a backdrop, please join me in prayer. Our Father, our King, bless our speaker, Josh Reinstein, as he conveys to us his insight and updates on events in Israel. Our Father, protector and redeemer of Israel, bless the state of Israel. Shield it beneath the wings of your love. Spread over it your canopy of peace and keep her borders secure. Send your light and truth to its leaders, officers, and those in authority, and direct them with your good counsel to lead constructively through wise decisions. Strengthen the defenders of this holy land who may be constantly in harm's way, and crown them with victory. Establish peace in the land and everlasting joy for its inhabitants. Help those of all religions to experience firsthand the religious melting pot in the land of Israel, and to support the close ties between the United States and Israel. Unite our hearts in love and revere your name. Shine forth in your glorious majesty over all the inhabitants of your world, so that people and nations will take the scripture to heart and bless Israel. Let everything that breathes proclaim, the Lord God of Israel is King. His majesty rules over all. Amen.
Please have a seat. Now, let me remind everyone to turn off your phones, okay? And the other announcement, we're going to be filming this for Facebook, but it will be delayed, and so everybody watch their tongue on the comments. This evening we will identify who is Israel. Throughout our history, each nation, each political leader, each religious leader, and each of us have to reconcile who is Israel. In organizing this event, I wish to tell you a little story. I know where Michelle Smith is, but Michelle just got back from Israel, and she called me, and she said, I met our speaker, and she said, we need to invite everybody in Collin County to come and hear him. And so we implemented that. We agreed with Michelle, and so we reached out, and at this time, let's go and show all the co-hosts for our program. Okay? And the screen, there we go. I'd like to appreciate the corporation from the African American Republican Club, the Golden Corridor Republican Club, Allen Area Patriots, the Connor, Harrington, did I say that right? Connor, okay, Harrington Republican Women, Heritage Ranch, Collin Strong, Republican Women in Greater North Texas, the Frisco Tea Party, the Plano Republican Women, and the Asian Republican Women of Greater North Texas. We appreciate all the club's participation in joining together, and it underlines our philosophy, where in Collin County, indeed, men and women join together, learn together, and work together for the Collin County Republican Party. Now that being said, I've got to recognize some individual talent, okay? First of all, I acknowledge Michelle Smith, tremendous work, and again, young lady, I appreciate your help. Next, the dynamite of Collin County, Mrs. Terry Green. You know, if you want something done in Collin County, you call on Terry Green, all right? Terry, appreciate all of your help and help in your organization. Well, really, we have been in trouble if I didn't acknowledge my spouse of 52 years, Lynn, okay? I am She's not only the administrative assistant, she's the technical assistant and A to Z, and I'm just happy to be present, okay? Next, I want to acknowledge Bob Tillman. Bob has been our expert on the video and social media. And then, indeed, I want to thank Bob Collins. I think I saw Bob Collins here. And where's Mr. Collins? All right. And Dr. Matkin, thank you all for helping us with this event this evening and utilizing your facilities. Now, and next, last but not least, I want to acknowledge Dr. Carrie Israel. Dr. Israel, helping hand and guidance and securing this appointment and this event. It just wouldn't have come off without his help. I really appreciate his support to us. And last but not least, Susie Reinstein. Where is Susie? All right, thank you for all your help. She said, would you like to get my son? Now, as we get started, being old country boy, everything's got a little story, right, Jim Skinner, Sheriff Skinner? We always have a little story. My prelude to our speaker, I'd like to share with you sort of a personal message. I learned at a very early age that there was a very special place in this world for Israel. Now in the present age, and also in the special place in the age to come. Historically, June 5, 1967, known as the Six-Day War, one of the most dynamic events in history. Israel's victory established Israel as a world power. I'll move forward a little bit, and I know you can relate to this, but every Sunday morning, carrying my King James Bible to church, okay, we acknowledge one very important concept. The God of Israel, the God of Abraham, Jacob, and Isaac. We learn that God will make Israel a great nation. We accept their laws and commandments, and now today. And I'm moving forward to May 4th, 2018. What happened? The Eastern United States recognized Jerusalem as the capital of Israel. Right? President Trump moved the U.S. Embassy to Jerusalem. Fourthly, we all recognize that Israel is the birthplace of Judaism and Christianity. Now, I'd like to take a moment and introduce our speaker. He's from Jerusalem. You live in Jerusalem, is that correct? And he came in to visit his family, and we were able to arrange this evening. So we welcome you to Texas, to Collin County. All right. Our speaker, Josh Reinstein, is the president of Israel's Alliance Foundation and director of the Pacific Christian Alliance Caucus. Joshua grew up in Dallas, an honor graduate of the University of Western Ontario with a degree in political science. He served as a tank gunner in the elite 188 unit of the Israel Defense Force. He currently lives with his wife and 4 children in Jerusalem. Mr. Reinstein is going to share his stories of where Christians and Jews are joining together, learning together, and working together for the peace of Israel. Ladies and gentlemen, we welcome Mr. Josh Reinstein.
Well, thank you so much for that warm introduction. It's great to be back in Texas. I grew up just down the road in Plano, and my family was God, country, family, Cowboys. It's good to see the Cowboys are doing well, Texas is doing well, and America's doing well. I want to thank Rabbi Block, who spoke to my mother, who talked to Richard Dodson about setting up this event. There's a great joke in there. Somewhere, a rabbi, mother, and the Republican committee chair got together. I couldn't figure it out. I tried with my uncle and aunt to figure it out, but couldn't come up with it. But I really appreciate you inviting me and thanking Rabbi. It's a great honor to have you here with us today. I also want to thank my wife. I'm on vacation, and I'm a workaholic. So my wife doesn't let me work on vacation. But I really needed this. I needed a break from vacation work bill. And now I can do the next 2 weeks of vacation okay and feel good about it. So I want to thank you for giving me a pass tonight. And in all seriousness, today is actually a very sad day for me. My friend Yoav Zaruk's son was murdered in Israel in a terrorist attack. He was stabbed to death. A beautiful boy, 19 years old, just turning 19. Was buying a book for his rabbi to thank him for yeshiva, and was stabbed to death in Gush Etzion today. And it just shows you that the war on terror never ends, and Israel's the tip of the sword. So please pray for his family, and please pray that God would be a comfort to the family, and that we have peace. I was asked to speak about the relationship between Israel and America, and it's a fascinating topic. It's very interesting, and probably the big question people always ask is, why is Israel America's best friend? You hear the president, he's like, our greatest friend and ally, Israel. Vice President Pence is always saying, we cherish our ally, Israel, our best friend. And in Israel, there's no greater friend than America, of course. But why? We could be good friends, but maybe Canada would be a better friend to America. They're neighbors, a lot of trade. There's England. You had a rough history, but now you guys are pretty friendly. There's South Korea. We just drove here in my uncle's Genesis. They make pretty cool cars. They seem to go. Why Israel, this little country the size of New Jersey, is the best friend, the world's superpower, the most powerful, most plentiful, greatest freedom-loving country in the world? Why is this little country, Israel, its best friend? And no one's even comes close, really. And the answer really is that there's 3 parts to it. There's 3 pillars to the friendship between America and Israel that makes us best friends. The first part is one based on faith. It's the belief in the Bible. It's the fact that the vast majority of our populations believe in the Bible, and they believe in the God of Israel. And in the Bible, we learn about prophecies. Many prophecies that we were always told for thousands of years that are going to come to pass. And in the last 70 years, in our generation or our parents' generation, we've got to see 90% of them fulfilled in Israel. And just let's take a look at some of these prophecies, because it's really miraculous. One of the big prophecies is that this people, the Jewish people, that were kicked out of the land of Israel and sent to the far corners of the earth, made a curse among the nations. This tiny people are going to one day come back to the same land, in the same geographic location, with the same religion, the same language, and the same heritage and culture. Really mathematically impossible. That doesn't happen. You spread a people to the far corners of the earth, you make them a curse among the nations, that's the end of the people. But of course, we've got to witness that. We got to witness the exiles returning to Israel. The return of the exiles. They came back from the north and the south, from the east and the west, as was foretold, on the wings of eagles, or airplanes as we call them today. We got to see that happening, and that one fulfillment of prophecy started a tidal wave of prophecies after prophecies being fulfilled right before our very eyes. We got to witness the deserts bloom. You know how ridiculous that prophecy is, that one day the desert's going to bloom? That's saying like one day the sun will melt. But of course, in Israel, we grow 70% of our fruits, our vegetables, our flowers in the sand through drip irrigation systems that we developed. I mean, really unbelievable. We've become a light unto the nations. Another big prophecy. Who would have thought this little tiny nation would create the majority of the technology we take for granted in the 21st century? Cell phone, laptop, the Pentium chip that goes into all those machines that you can carry them with you, the answering machine, text messaging, the CAT scan, drip irrigation system that's wiped out famine in the world. People can now grow things without water. Desalinization. Over 70% of our drinking water is from the ocean. We take out the water, we separate the water from the salt, we drink the water, and we sell the salt. We're beating France in wine tasting competitions. Do you know how crazy that is? They have universities in France that are dedicated for thousands of years of pairing the right vines to the right other vines. Who knows what they're doing? We just plant our seeds in the swamp and we have better wine than them. We export flowers to Holland. We invented the cherry tomato and the seedless watermelon. We're really a light onto all the nations. This little nation. Nations are coming up to Jerusalem for the feast. I just saw Michelle at our Jerusalem prayer breakfast on Shavuot, Pentecost. Do you know how crazy that prophecy is? That all the nations are going to come up and praise the one true God during the feast? How would they even get there? How would the Bible even know that in 2,000 years we would have planes and trains and the way to get there even? Or when they say worship the one true God, there were thousands of gods back then. How do they know that everyone now would know that there's only one God in these different places? I mean, really, the fulfillment of prophecy is really unbelievable. We're seeing children playing in the streets of Jerusalem. You know how amazing that is? You know how dangerous Jerusalem was before 1948? No one went to Jerusalem. Not one world leader was in Jerusalem before 1948. Not even the king of Jordan, who was in control of Jerusalem during that time. So, really what we're seeing is this incredible fulfillment of prophecy, one after another. And that is one of the pillars that is bringing America and Israel together. We call it faith-based diplomacy. But there's a second pillar as well. And the second pillar is based on shared values. What we call Judeo-Christian values was what America was founded on. It was what Israel was founded on as well. But you know what? Those are the only two countries in the world founded on Judeo-Christian values. In fact, many people don't know this, but there was a great debate by the founding fathers of America if the national language of America should be English or Hebrew. The last words that people remember that Abraham Lincoln said before his assassination is, "I want to visit Jerusalem." I mean, there was a real foundation of Judeo-Christian values here. And these values are not just abstract concepts. They're real things. They're freedom and justice and liberty and equality. These are the values we get from Judeo-Christian values. And that's why in Israel, it's the only place in the whole Middle East, out of the 22 countries, where men and women are equal. Not only can women get a job and drive a car and show their face in public, which isn't the case in the many countries around us, but a woman can be the prime minister of Israel, which was the case with Golda Meir. or the head of the Speaker of the Knesset of Israel, like Dalia Itzik, or the head of the Supreme Court of Israel, like is currently so. Women and men fight side by side in the military. That equality of men and women is a shared value with America. We have freedom of religion. We're the only country with freedom of religion. Not only can you bring a Bible into Jerusalem and study it anywhere you want, but people walking by will say, hey, way to go. That's what you should do in Jerusalem. Take out your Bible, let's read it. Do you know if you took the same Bible in Saudi Arabia, you'd be arrested at the airport? You could be hung. It's a stiffer penalty bringing a Bible to Saudi Arabia or Iran than bringing a kilo of heroin into Texas. So the freedom of religion is a Judeo-Christian value that we cherish and share. We have freedom of election. We have freedom of speech. We have freedom, all the freedoms we take for granted as Westerners. And that is a pillar that brings us together, our shared values. And then lastly, the third pillar is shared political goals. Israel and America is working together in an unbelievable effort to develop better technology, better ways of life for their citizens, and better communications. America knows that the only place they can land a plane in the Middle East is Israel. If they need to do something, they have a permanent base in Israel where they can do it. But it's more than that. A lot of people say, why does America give $4 billion in military aid to Israel? Why are they just giving away? Israel's not a poor country. Why are they giving $4 billion of aid? What people don't realize is that they're not giving $4 billion of aid. They're giving $4 billion to Israel that they can only use to buy weapons in America. And it's quite brilliant. All of our weapons are American weapons. And what do? We trick them out. We use all our technology to make them amazing. The best example is the F-35 that was developed in Texas itself. It's a great fighter plane. But you know what? I went to the opening demonstration with some of the state senators from Texas in the south of Israel. And what we've been able to do with it is unbelievable. They have on it now an electronic eye, where you don't even need to fire the weapon, you just wink, and you can take out the target. They've put on a display screen, a 3-person display screen, where you man 3 attack drones at the same time that you're flying the plane. I mean, it's really unbelievable, and that is really a political bond. And it's those 3 things, a bond of faith, a bond of values, and a political interest that keeps this American-Israeli alliance strong and prosperous. But what we figured out, and unfortunately we did, and I'm not scared to say this because we're at a Republican rally, during the Obama administration, that if one of those pillars fail, it all comes crumbling down. And unfortunately, that's what we witnessed. Obama said, you know what? Israel's a good country, but also Madagascar's a good country. And also Mozambique's a good country, and Macedonia, and Hungary. Why are we giving special relations and preference to Israel? We have to be fair and honest brokers. And when he did that, it took away the faith element of the relationship. And then he said, you know, okay, the Palestinians are involved in terrorist attacks, and the Hamas is a terrorist organization, and they don't have the freedoms we do, but this is their way of life. You know, this is their culture. This is, you know, they don't want women to go out and vote. Moral relativism. It's okay. Let them decide. And so we had an equation that both sides were just the same. They're both good. One's good for them. One's good. Democracy is good for Israel. Tyranny is good for the Palestinians. And that eroded the second pillar of common values. And then there was the misrepresentation from that saying, wait a minute, if that's true, if everyone's good, and there's no evil, and there's no good, then why aren't we working with Iran? Why not work with the Ayatollahs? And that turned into a huge change in doctrine. Instead of Iran being the problem in the Middle East because they fund terrorism and because they're developing nuclear weapons and they're a tyrannic Islamic state, they became the solution. And you know who became the problem? Israel. It's the Israelis and the Palestinians that are causing all these problems. They won't make peace. Stubborn Israel doesn't want to make peace. No matter how many times we tried to make peace and divided the land, and what, it wasn't enough because, well, we can't ask the Palestinians, that's just not culturally right. We have to ask the Israelis. And you see, when you start eroding one of the columns, the pillars of our relationship, the whole thing comes tumbling down. But there's also a reverse effect. The stronger you make the pillars, the stronger the relationship becomes. And we're seeing that now with Donald Trump's administration. Do you know that Donald Trump in Israel, among Israeli Jews, has an 86% approval rating? Maybe I'm not as learned, maybe Rabbi Block can help me. What do 86% of Jews agree on, other than that? In anything? Nothing. And it's because what Donald Trump did the opposite of what Obama was doing. He said, you know what? My base are Bible-believing Christians. And they know what God is doing for Israel. So we need to strengthen that faith base. And we need to stand with Israel more. And you know, if the other side wants to pay terrorists to kill people with our money, maybe we shouldn't give them money. Because we have values. And our values say you don't pay people to murder Americans, women, children abroad. And you know, politically, it doesn't make sense. Why are we working with Iran? They're causing all the problems in the Middle East today. And so he reversed it. And you know what happened? The strongest relationship in the history of America and Israel. In the last 18 months, Donald Trump has moved the embassy to Jerusalem, recognized sovereignty in the Golan Heights. Each one is a miraculous victory. An incredible victory that we've been working on for 30 years. Each one of them, moving the embassy to Jerusalem, since the 1995 Embassy Act. In Congress, was passed unanimously, we've been working on that. Sovereignty in the Golan Heights. 30 years battle. We've been working on recognition for that. Taylor Force Act, making it illegal to fund terrorists. Defunding UNRWA, stopping the perpetuation of this refugee myth that from generation to generation only Palestinians can be refugees, but every other people are only one generation refugees. The anti-BDS legislation, making it illegal to do anti-Semitic business practices. Not calling Judea and Samaria occupied, but disputed. These are all things that the Trump administration has just done in the last 18 months. And you know what? The secret sauce in this whole equation is you. It's because of you. It's because you want them to do that. It's because Trump knows that this is what you want. And this is really what I work in faith-based diplomacy. It's grassroots Christians working together to mobilize support for Israel, working with the Christian leadership to talk to the political leadership of standing with Israel. And I have to say that America's example is seen all over the world. And we're strengthening faith-based diplomacy. We now have 40 Israel Allies caucuses in countries and parliaments around the world. We have the Congressional Israel Allies Caucus here in Washington, D.C. We have the Australian Parliamentary Israel Allies Caucus. We have the Brazilian Israel Allies Caucus. We have the European Union Israel Allies Caucus. We have over 1,000 legislators who are taking their biblical support and turning it into real political action. And it all started with groups like these coming together and saying, we want to stand with Israel because we believe in the Bible. And we think it's the right thing to do. And also it makes sense politically. And that's really why Israel is America's best friend. But we have to understand, and we have to learn from the example of Obama. And I have to tell you, we have a lot of Democrats in our caucus, and I'm not against the Democrats, and there's a lot of pro-Israel Democrats out there. But Obama changed the rules of the game. He made it okay to stand against Israel and still get the support of the Democratic Party. And that's the future if we don't change it. And as Republicans, you need to stand up and keep your representatives' feet to the fire. Because it can sway back in a second, as we saw during the Obama administration. I just believe that as Americans and Israelis, we need to work together to support these values and beliefs that we hold. It's the source of our strength, the reason for our success and prosperity, and the foundation of the Judeo-Christian civilization that we share. We must only love the Lord our God with all our soul, with all our heart, with all our might, as we are commanded to do, and we shall prevail. And Americans and Jews will work together and strengthen together. I think that there's a huge opportunity here, not just between Texas and Israel, but between America and Israel, to strengthen this bond. For those who love the Bible, we have a great slogan in Israel. We say, if you like the book, you'll love the country. Come experience for yourself. My aunt told me this morning that you're going to have direct flights from Dallas to Israel starting in 2020. Get on that inaugural flight. But also, I think that what we need to see is a coming together of the people. Don't just support the country. Support the people of Israel. I always say that it's not countries but Christians who stand with Israel. And I think that the people of Israel need to feel that love, to get to meet them, to get to know them. Meet people on the street in Israel. Tell them why you stand with Israel. I think that's incredibly important this time. But the good news is that for the first time in the 15 years I've been involved in this, we're really winning. We're winning. Faith-based diplomacy is working. We're strengthening every month, not even every year. So the most important thing is get Donald Trump reelected. I'm bipartisan. I'm not Democrat. I'm not Republican. I don't care about the internal issues. But get Donald Trump reelected. Meet him. Meet Mike Pence. Meet Ambassador David Friedman. And so you have your work cut out for you here. And I want to recognize Rafael Cruz is with us tonight. His son has been personally a very good friend, but he's the best friend Israel had until Donald Trump. Now he's learning how to do everything. But he's an amazing guy, and I look forward to seeing him on the 12th in Midland. And we're doing this big event in Midland. You're all invited to come. But I just want to say to you, thank you. It was important for me to take the time out of my vacation and just say thank you to you, because I know why the Republican Party is standing with Israel. And Richard, thanks for all you're doing. I appreciate it.
We have a microphone set up over here, so we'll take the next few minutes for question and answers. So if you have an inquiry, a question, get in line over here. Okay?
I'll start. I'm Susan Fletcher. I'm honored to serve here in Collin County on the Commissioner's Court. Before I served as a commissioner, I actually took groups of people to Israel. I've taken 4 groups of people over there. The last group I took was 58 people. I've also worked with a hospital. You may be familiar with Assad Harofeh outside of Tel Aviv. And we actually did an event here where we had Glenn Beck come in and help us raise funds for their underground parking lot that we were changing over to a wartime emergency room. One of the things that, when I was in Israel, I got to tour the hospital. Israel has pioneered this hyperbaric technology, and it can really make a difference, especially for traumatic brain injuries for our war veterans. And they have really made such a difference. And I want to know if you have any advice, because I've worked on that issue and tried to get it furthered here because it's such an important issue and people are getting healed. And instead of just treating an aneurysm with an aspirin, we can actually get some of our veterans some real healing. And if you have any thoughts on that or any advice, I'd love to hear it.
Actually, surprisingly, I know a little bit about this. When you said something about a hospital, I was like, oh. To be honest, my aunt was a doctor, but I actually know about Assad Harofeh. I know about the work that they're doing. Aaron Kolob is a good friend of Benny Davidson, the head of the hospital. I've seen the hyperbaric chamber you're talking about. What's amazing is that half of the hyperbaric chambers are actually funded by Texas. I don't know if you know about that, but donors who pay for it. There's a waiting list for U.S. military veterans to come and use it there. But I asked the same question, why do they have to go there? Why don't you have it here? And I'm not sure, it's a procedural issue, I believe. I don't think it's a funding issue. But I know that they're helping hundreds of former U.S. veterans who not just have aneurysms like that, but have PSTD and things like that. And it's really unbelievable. But that's something that people don't understand. There's a whole world of medicine that's being developed in Israel that you don't have here yet. It's coming, but it'll take time. And the medical tourism in Israel is one of the biggest markets we're seeing because people are figuring out that they need to come there and start using the medicine there. So it's an interesting point you bring up.
I have always wondered why so many Jewish American people are Democrats. I don't understand.
All right, so
That was my question.
I asked that question, everyone sat down. It's a very good question. There's two answers, really, and there is some logic to it. First of all, it used to be in the 50s and the 60s that the Democrats were the civil rights activists. Jews couldn't go to the country clubs. Jews weren't allowed to go into the universities, and it was Democrats who helped them. And people remember that. So it takes a long time to change someone who gets used to voting for a political party. It's like turning an aircraft carrier. You can't just do it like that. You got to move slowly. But the more effective answer is that Jews aren't Democrats. Okay, the Jewish population, basically 30% of Jews are Republicans, 70% of are Democrats. But the religious Jewish community, so the ones who believe in the Bible, the ones who read the Torah, the ones who have Shabbat and eat kosher, the vast majority are Republican. The Russian community, Jewish community, is Republican. And the Israeli community, there's 1 million Israelis who moved to Israel, are Republican. The 70% that are mostly Democrats are people who are in the Reform movement. So they're people that have moved away from the traditional traditions of the Torah. And they're more inclusive. So I think that the real answer is the more you believe in the Bible, the more likely as a Jew you're going to vote Republican. The more you move away from the laws of the Bible, the more likely you're going to vote Democrat. In America, 70% of the Jews are less observant. And I think that's why you have such a divide. But unfortunately, because of the rise of anti-Semitism, I think also they will become more and more Republican as things move forward as well. But it'll take time. Yeah.
I think it's very important that the Christian population in the whole Middle East, including Israel, stay constant, steady. Unfortunately, in many countries like Iraq, Syria, the Christian population is declining rapidly. And what's to be done about this, especially in the case of Israel, to maintain a significant Christian population there?
So in Israel, the Christian community is the only Christian community in the Middle East that grows every year and doesn't decrease every year. What we did is we took a really bold step 8 years ago, and there's only 2% of Israel that are Christian, and there are 18% that are Muslim. But they were all categorized under the umbrella of Arab. And so what we did is we took the 2% out of the Arab umbrella, where they had to go to an Arab school that was in Arabic, and we gave them their own status as Aramaic Israelis. And so now they have their own institutions, more of them are going to the military, more of them are getting involved with Israel, and it's really caused them to flourish. So our Christian community is very important to us in Israel. We're very proud that we have religious freedoms. Also our Muslim community, we have very good relations with all Israelis. We have free, democratic society where everyone's equal. So we want everyone to be protected. But the real question is why are millions, not the thousands or tens of thousands, millions of Christians being murdered in the Middle East and Northern Africa and no one's speaking about it? Right. And that's the real atrocity. Israel tried to do by intervening in Syria and trying to help in Nigeria and places like that, but there needs to be a lot more work done on that issue.
Thank you.
Hey, Mr. Huck.
Yeah.
How you doing?
Josh, it's good to see Josh again. He's been in the trenches now for about 15 years doing this, and I remember us doing meetings with some of the folks that are in this crowd here, some getting it started, helping it.
Yeah, I saw on the flyer it said I was one of the 50 most influential Jews.
I saw
in the
that,
world.
yeah.
But when I met Huck, I was one of the 50 least influential. We've come a long way.
We love Josh. We love his family, his parents. We also have a brother that's been involved in some of this stuff too.
Yeah, my sister's right here.
Oh, his
No,
sister's here. Yeah, it's good to see you. And good to see the shepherds here. God bless them. They've been tremendous. Just a lot of folks in the crowd here. Quick testimony, and then I've got a question. Testimony is, I grew up on a Midwest farm, and I was in college in 1974, or 73. Joined the Navy, found myself on an aircraft carrier in 1976, protecting Israel right after the raid on Entebbe. We were in the Persian Gulf. So this is where God connects people's paths. You get connected, and I remember our captain, we met the captain through our chaplain, and he told us, he couldn't tell us where we were going, but he said, we're going to protect the apple of God's eye at the source of the Nile. And it was like in code, so I ran up and talked to the chaplain, I said, where are we going, what's going on? And he said, son, Israel's just rescued their hostages in Entebbe, and we're going to be in the Persian Gulf for 2 months protecting them because we got extended. But I will tell you folks, the blessing that started coming on my life, the blessings, because of Genesis 12:3. When you study the blessings, and I know Tim and Virginia can share the same thing. Blessing after blessing, for blessing the Jewish people. It's right there in the Abrahamic covenant, in Genesis 12 and on. I'm saying this to say, you do this because because God loves them, but also because God puts a love for the Jewish people into Christians' hearts when they dedicate their life to Jesus and they turn their life over to God, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. So anyhow, that's my testimony. That's why I'm here. So my quick question, we just drove up from Austin, we got here late. Can you tell us like 2 or 3 really key goals of Christian Allies Caucus and the Israeli Foundation you're working with? Tell us what's on the horizon a little bit, just briefly, and then how we can get involved, stay involved.
Well, thank you for that. Yes, everyone has a unique relationship with Israel, and we believe that God just puts it on your heart to stand with Israel, be with Israel. And I know that you've been doing this for so many years, so I really appreciate your support. The Israel Allies Foundation basically coordinates the activities of Israel Allies caucuses around the world. We've been working very closely with this administration. Mike Pence was the former chairman when he was a congressman of the Congressional Israel Allies Caucus. He's a personal friend. Mike Pompeo was a member of our caucus. David Friedman, the ambassador, worked with the rabbi who started the foundation for 15 years as the head chairman of the American Friends of Beit El. That's what David Friedman used to do for charity before. So we're very closely working with this administration. It's very important to show support, to show that this is important to the constituencies, to talk to your congressman, to ask your congressman if they're a member of the Congressional Israelite Caucus, and if not, why, to write op-eds and get the truth about Israel out there. We do events all over, and you can go on our website to see it. The next one's on the 12th in Midland, Texas, and really, if you come there, it's going to be a great event. Ted Cruz will be there, many different congressmen and politicians standing with Israel, but the truth is that everyone knows what their strengths are. If they want to stand with Israel, now is a great opportunity to get involved. The 3 things you need to do for Israel is pray for the peace of Jerusalem. That's something that God commands us, and the Jewish sages say that the reason God says to pray for the peace of Jerusalem is that God wants you to keep Jerusalem in focus. He wants you to think about Jerusalem. He wants you to teach your children about Jerusalem. He wants you to understand that Jerusalem is an important issue for all of us. So I would start with that, and then secondly, I would go to Jerusalem. I'll go to Israel and see it for myself. There's no better way to go to understand what's happening in Israel than to actually see it. And that's why people pretend it's a dangerous place. They don't want you to see it for yourself. Jerusalem is the safest capital in the world statistically, bar none. In 2014, there were 850 murders in Chicago. In Jerusalem, including terrorist attacks, it was a very bad year, 6. All right, you can't compare. So go there, enjoy it, go out, take your Bible, use it as a roadmap. It's brilliant. It's a great investment in your spiritual future. So I would really encourage people to go there. And then use your own individual talents to see how you can make a stand for Israel. And that's the best you can. So tell your Bible study about Israel. Talk to your pastor and ask him why he's not teaching more about Israel. Those are the type of things that you do. Please, Representative.
Josh, thank you so much. I'm so inspired and invigorated by your talk. I'm Judy Tashbrook-Saffron, and I publish a magazine called Dallas Jewish Monthly. And I want to thank all of you. I came up here to thank Josh, but I have to thank all of you, because I'm a member of the Orthodox Jewish community. I used to live in Israel, and my children live in Israel. Please God, one day we'll all be back in Israel. But while we're here in Texas, we are so blessed by you. It is so palpable, it is so real, it is so important, and every time I come to one of these interfaith events, I'm a little bit embarrassed that there aren't more of us Jewish people here. And so I'm standing here on behalf of the Jewish community to say thank you. And I'm also standing here saying, I would like to invite all of you to come for a Shabbos dinner. We are going to do this. I don't know how or when, but we're going to do this because you're blessing us and we want to bless you back. And I'm going to ask Josh for some advice because you're doing tremendous things. I would love to know, now that you've been doing this in Israel for so long, what do you recommend the Jews here in Dallas can do to facilitate more, and there's not a better word for it, do?
Well, first of all, I want to recommend all of you to buy the September issue of the magazine. There's a great op-ed coming out by a brilliant author named Dr. David Feinstein, and everyone should read it. Everyone should read it. Look, I think grassroots cooperation is the name of the game. What we've seen around the world because of grassroots cooperation is really amazing. We're seeing really Jews and Christians come together in an unprecedented versatility. Something that we've never even thought of. I mean, it's really unheard of. And I think that's where it has to start. It has to start with the average, you invited everyone to your house for Shabbat. That's a great beginning.
Yeah.
Go to her house for Shabbat and get to know her and see what you can do together. I think the more cooperation, the better. And I think really there's something, there was a senator who was then governor, now I think he's an ambassador. His name's Sam Brownback. And he said that for many years, Jews and Christians were walking up the same mountain, but from different sides. And right now, we just got to the top of the mountain. We're just starting to see each other. And I think it's a great opportunity to get to know each other and see what we have in common. And there's so much. And we have a lot that's different as well. I mean, we don't believe in the same religion. We believe in the New Testament, we believe in the Talmud. There's a lot different, but the base is the same. And so there's so much that we can do together that I think we need to try and see how we can develop that. And the most beautiful thing is that nothing really big ever came from big organizations, Jewish ones and Christians working together. It's all a people thing. It's all 2 or 3 people got together, they came with an idea and they did something, and we're seeing amazing things happen around the world. So I would encourage you to just keep on doing what you're doing. Get out there and have people come over and learn about what you're doing. Read the magazine. I think that's a great step too. Know what Jewish people think about Israel. They love Israel too. Despite the fact that they vote Democrats.
Go ahead, Lenny.
Hi, my name is Jennifer Breisman. I'm the president of Plano Republican Women. I am one of those small percentage of Jewish Republicans. My question is, what can we do? There's a misnomer, or it's a lie actually, that Donald Trump is a Nazi, which is so ridiculous because his daughter and grandchildren are Jewish. I don't know how you could have a white supremacist, accept a daughter to converts like I did. What can we do just stop that misnomer and that lie and say, this is totally ridiculous and it's just a lie.
Look, I think that what's sad about it is that people go for style over substance. And I think the results speak for themselves. Forget the fact that he's extremely pro-Jewish, his grandchildren are Jewish, he celebrates the Jewish feasts and the holidays in his home because of his daughter. He's very close with the Orthodox Jewish community. But that all aside, he's done more for the Jewish community than any president has ever done. He's passing laws on anti-Semitism that no one would have dared to do. He's passed anti-BDS legislation. We've done it in 27 states, including Texas now.
Yes.
That is really groundbreaking, and he's defending it. So that's not the only thing he's doing. He's doing incredible things for African Americans and Hispanics, and you can see it in the job growth and the employment opportunities and the crime going down in different cities. So I think the most important thing is just to tell people, look, he might be crass, he might be on Twitter, he might say that, but just look what he's doing. You have to judge a person by his actions.
Right.
And I think they speak for themselves. He's really doing great things. Virginia.
So I was just going to say, we just got back from our 23rd trip to Israel. We've been going twice this year. But I think it's important for everybody going to Israel, because not only do you help the economy, but you really get an idea of really what's going on, and you really understand everything you read in the Bible, and it really does come alive. Everybody always says that, but it really is true. But the most important thing we found here in Dallas is connect to the Dallas Jewish community, because all the projects in Israel a lot of times are flowing to the Dallas Jewish community, and if you go and get involved, there's so many opportunities you can to connect with one and to help many organizations, and then really to develop those covenant relationships with the Jewish people, which will really turn you around for life. So, that's it.
Josh, how do you do? My name's Chris. Thank you very much for this talk tonight.
Hold it up.
The mic.
Hi Josh, my name's Chris. Thank you for the talk that you provided for us this evening. I found it to be very enlightening. I think it's safe to say that in this room, and I feel comfortable saying it, that 4 more for number 45 would be a fabulous thing. But my question to you is, with the history and the foresight that you present, what are the 2 or 3 things that you would like to see, assuming, hopefully, that we get another 4 out of Donald Trump? What would you like to see? If you could wave a magic wand, here's
There's basically, I made a list in 2015 of the 10 biggest things that America could do for Israel, and our goal as an organization was to get 1 done in the next 5 years. And he's done 8 of them. Let's say 2.5, but the first thing is, I think one of the things that we need to tackle now is to dispel the idea that the 2-state solution is a good idea. It's a bad idea. The land of Israel has been divided 22 times since 1911. There's nothing but death and destruction. Jewish people are supposed to be the custodians over the land. It's not our land to divide. God gave us this land. We need to protect it, and we need to stop saying that the only solution is a 2-state solution. There are many other solutions, and we need to look at it. I think his deal of the century, which isn't a peace deal, it's a doctrine, is really important. And I know it's changing all the time, and it could be by the time it comes out I disagree with it, but with the current version right now, what I've seen, I think it's a very strong start. And I think that in the next 4 years, if he can take those points and entrench them into American law and international law, that's all we really need. And the second thing is that he's done all these amazing things, but they're very quickly reversible. A lot of them are done by executive order. A lot of them, if you put, someone else in the presidency, they can just sign another order and say, no, the Jerusalem's moving back to Tel Aviv, and the Golan is not now sovereign. So we need to start working on, and he can do this. He's got the best legal minds working on this right now to entrench this in American law that they're irreversible. And I think those 2 things are the most important things to do right now.
Thank you.
Thank you, Josh. Josh, I did a lot of work in Europe, have a lot of people in Europe that I keep in contact with. And I'm hearing a growing concern about the growth of the BDS movement and anti-Semitism in places you wouldn't expect, like Britain and Ireland. What can we do in reaching out to our elected officials to have them exert some influence? I know I'm personally concerned with Jeremy Corbyn, the Labour Party, and the deep anti-Semitism that I sense there. But what can we as Americans do to support Israel through our efforts in Europe?
Look, I think there's several major problems with Europe, and it's not an easy issue. We have 14 parliamentary caucuses, including in the EU and Europe, and I think Charles Krauthammer, Alav Shalom, said it best when he said that the big surprise is not that there's anti-Semitism again in Europe, it's that they've been able to suppress it for 70 years. And just rife with anti-Semitism. What's happened is that there's a perfect storm brewing, because they let in millions of Islamic refugees from Syria, from Turkey, from all these different places that have about 5 children per family, and they stopped having children. They have 0.9 children per family in Western Europe. So it's really a numbers game. I think that now the politicians are pandering to get that vote, and it's just going to continue as that population grows, and they're very anti-Israel, and we're seeing crazy laws like in Ireland that they're now saying if you buy something in the old city of Jerusalem and bring it back, you go to jail for 5 years and you have $1 million fine. And it's passed 3 readings in Parliament. It sounds crazy, but that could be a law. And so it's a big, big problem. Another problem is that the anti-Semitism is not an Israel issue. It used to be, 10 years ago when we were getting involved, that they'd say death to Israel, but no, we like Jews. You know, it's not against Jews, it's not anti-Semitism, we're just death to Israel. But now they're going back to death to Jews again. And we're seeing that more and more, and they're passing crazy anti-Jewish laws. They're making it illegal in countries that you can't circumcise children, which means you can't be Jewish. They're making it illegal to have kosher food, which means you can't have a Jewish life. So they're actually legislating the kicking out of Jews of countries in Europe. And of course, what you said, the BDS is probably the biggest problem. They're doing the labeling of Jewish goods again. It's the same labeling laws of the 1930s. They just changed the word Jew to Israel. They say don't buy Israeli products, not don't buy Jewish products, or don't invite Israeli professors to speak in the universities, not don't invite Jewish professors, or it's the same blood libel. Instead of saying that we're stealing Christian children to take their blood and make matzah, they're saying we're giving poison candies to Palestinian children in Gaza. It's this idea of the wandering Jew, that we're usurping someone else's land. Like the Jews are taking Judea from the Arabs. I mean, it's nuts. I mean, it doesn't make any sense. What people have a better claim to a land than the Jewish people to Israel? But it's the same classical anti-Semitism. And I believe that Western Europe is lost. I know it's controversial to say it. I don't think there's much you can do. But there's a lot of hope in Eastern Europe. And we're seeing a tremendous block of support in 12 to 15 Eastern European countries who knows what it's like to live under communism. And now they're banding together and saying, we don't want to go down this direction. We want to stand with Israel. We want freedom. We want democracy. We don't want this craziness. And the Brexit is also an opportunity. Boris Johnson is a dear friend of Israel. And actually, we were just there in July with our caucus. We did a massive parliamentary event, and they're going to reject the BDS laws and the regulations of the EU. So there's a lot to be done. I think our biggest problem is also that there's no finances. In America, it's easy to do things if people get engaged, they donate, they get involved. In Europe, they don't have that culture. They're kind of like, well, let the government take care of it. But it's really crazy. And the best example is the foreign minister of Sweden. She's a woman, and she's pro-Sharia law. Which means not only if she gets what she wants, she can't be the Justice Minister of Sweden or the Foreign Minister of Sweden anymore. She won't even be allowed to vote. So they're so short-sighted that they're voting against their own interests just so that they can be powerful at the time. And how do you fight that? It's a very difficult situation.
Thank you.
Just a brief announcement about all elected officials and candidates, and assemble over here if you wish to say a 15-second speech.
Josh, a personal question first, and then an important question. Are you Jewish, Israeli, or Texan? So that's your signal, right? Welcome back to Texas.
Thank you.
Would we agree that we're pretty well, as we would say in Texas, joined at the hip with Israel? What is the greatest threat to the freedom of the people of the United States and of Israel? Could it possibly be the national media?
The greatest threat to American Israel today is by far Iran. Iran is an Islamist state that believes that by nuking America and Israel, they can bring the coming of their Messiah to it, and they don't mind losing 10, 15 million people doing it. It would actually be a bonus, less mouths to feed. And I think that that's why it's been so short-sighted by America. They were until Donald Trump funding and protecting the greatest threat to America today. The reason they want the long-range missiles is not to hit Israel. They get hit us 20 years ago. They're coming for you. They're coming for us. They're coming for Western Europe. And I think that that is by far the only existential threat. I think all the other threats we can manage, we can fix, we can legislate. That's something that needs to be taken care of yesterday.
Do you think it would be an important thing if we could take over one of the major media networks as a group of people? We have the power, we have the ability.
And you don't think Fox News is doing it?
If we just had the plan, is anybody in that? Say yes. Thank you, Josh.
Thank you, Josh, for being here. My name is Alejandra Montes, and I'm here representing the Hispanic community. And I just want to start to saying that it was very emotional last year when I was in Israel, entering to the city center of Jerusalem, seeing the American flag along with the Israeli flag. It was like I was crying because it was emotionally. But I catch two very important things what you say on today's speech. You say that it's very important to have Donald Trump re-elected. Also, you mentioned that there is about 70% of the Jewish community that is Democrat. It happened the same thing on the Hispanic community. There's a lot of Democrats. They think they're Democrats, but they're truly Republicans. And in Texas, we cannot, as a Republican party, we cannot take any victory as a granted, because we saw that on the past elections for the Senate. It was pretty close. So my question to you, because you are one of the best influencers, is your advice, how we can engage the Hispanic community more in the Republican Party to share the values, but more important, how we can engage the Republican members to reach the Hispanic community.
I think that the name of the game for 2020 is turnout. Turnout, turnout, turnout. It's going to be who goes to vote. And it's all got to be a grassroots movement. You got to start at the Hispanic church level, get people, volunteers to go out and speak to 10 different people. I mean, it's got to be a big campaign. But what we're seeing in the Hispanic community is a real change of heart towards Israel. I don't know if you've been following this also in Latin America, but in Brazil, in Colombia, in Guatemala, these were enemy states. These were places that was working with the president of Iran and giving them money and boycotting. They're now our best friends. And it's because the people are Bible-believing Christians. They see that Israel is the part of the covenant between God and Abraham, and they want to be part of that. And I think that there's a real power with the Hispanic community that's growing, that you'll see that they're becoming more pro-Israel in their stance. And always Israel is a great way to say, look, let's see who's better for Israel. If that's an important issue to you, that's an issue that sways. And I think that's something that needs to be done too, to talk more about Israel in the Hispanic churches. But we're seeing a lot going on there, but it's all going to be about turnout and getting a grassroots organization together to speak to people individually.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
Well, I think that's the last question for me. I just want to say to all you again, thank you. Thank you, Richard, and Rabbi Block, and Mom, of course. You got my shirt dry cleaned today, so but I just want to say that I hope that next year we all meet again, but next year in Jerusalem.
That's fine. All right, all the candidates, will you please come up? And now, Scott, start with you. Limit your vocabulary.
Hello, my name is Scott Grigg. I'm running for Collin County Tax Assessor, looking to bring the fresh new leadership to that office and make it the best tax office in the state of Texas.
I'm Candy Noble, and I'm honored to serve you in the Texas House.
Good evening, folks. Mike Management with Collin County Constable Precinct 1. 34.5 years of Collin County Sheriff's Office, retired on October 1, so I can serve you all as a constable the next 4 years. Thank you.
Howdy, y'all. My name is Bill Whitehill. It's my honor and pleasure to serve you as a justice on the Texas 5th District Court of Appeals. I'll be on the ballot in 2020. Appreciate your vote. Appreciate your help.
Hello, I'm Suzanne Wooten. I'm a former district judge of Collin County, and I'm back to run for the open bench of the 401st because Mark Rush is retiring. I'm happy to serve the community again, and I'm going to keep on fighting for everyone.
Fred Moses. I have a long history in my Jewish last name. Moses. I'm probably trusted.
Fred always steals everybody's thunder. I'm Bob Collins, chairman of the board of this college.
Hi there, I'm Susan Fletcher, honored to serve you on the Collin County Commissioners Court, Precinct 1, and I am running for re-election.
I'm Kenneth Bond. I like to say I'm your friendly Collin County tax assessor collector. Yes, sometimes I don't like to admit it, but we always have fun. We work with people, and we're glad to have good taxpayers in Collin County. Thank you.
Hi folks, my name is Jim Skinner, and I want to thank you for allowing me the privilege of serving as your Collin County Sheriff.
Good evening, my name is Chuck Branch. I'm your State Republican Executive Committee man for SD 8, and we need your help getting out the voters and making sure that we get the people registered to vote. Democrats are outpacing us 2-1 right now, so please sign up to help us get people out there as much as we can.
Steve Duke, the City of Lucas, City Council.
I have a couple of special endings here. First of all, I want to thank everybody again. And then mark your calendar because September 19th, we're back at headquarters. This is, for this one occasion. So mark your calendar for September the 19th, CCRM meeting. At this time, I'd like to call on Rabbi Brock for a blessing, and then we'll be adjourned.
Richard, thank you for hosting this wonderful evening. Josh, incredible, inspirational, informative talk, and excellent reflection of the vast array of knowledge that you keep up here without any notes. I'd just like to conclude with a blessing. The Lord bless you and guard you. The Lord make his countenance shine upon you and be gracious to you. The Lord turn his countenance toward you and grant you peace. Amen.
We are adjourned.